Hello, Owls, and welcome to ACT English for Owls, week number 11. This week, we're going to cover long sentences. We're going to practice and even create some long sentences. You know, the ACT loves those long sentences, and let's talk about why. The first is that long sentences allow for phrases, clauses, punctuations, and conjunctions. And the longer the sentence, the more of those that they can pack in. So ACT really loves those. Longer sentences also allow for more depth of ideas and additional details and more information. So ACT loves to give you these long sentences, and they really do test your ability to read and process in depth. So we're going to wrap our head around long sentences. So here's the opening sentence for the Scarlet Letter. I'll read it to you, and then you can see the green text there. When you're ready, hit pause and determine the 4 words in this sentence that must be kept in order to keep this a complete sentence. So I'll read it to you, and then when you think you understand what's being asked of you for this question, go ahead and hit pause. A throng of bearded men in sad-colored garments and gray steeple-crowned hats, intermixed with women, some wearing hoods and others bareheaded, was assembled in front of a wooden edifice, the door of which was heavily timbered with oak and studded with iron spikes. So in that sentence, you've got a whole lot of words, but only 4 of them are essential to keeping the main sentence together. Everything else is extra, right? So we need to pick out the bones and get rid of the meat and the fat. If you think you know what they are, or you want to study it for a little bit, hit pause. All right, and now I'm going to go ahead and reveal the answer. So you have a throng of bearded men. That is probably the main phrase, and we're just going to go with the throng. A throng is a group of people who are there for a common purpose. And then we have was assembled. A throng was assembled. If we were going to just write the minimum number of words for this sentence, it would just be a throng was assembled. And let's take a look. If we break that down, we have the complete sentence over here, and we've used some color coding. Here we go. A throng was assembled. And it's sort of like an outline where this is main idea. And then, so you have subject and predicate, and then A, B, C, little 1, little 2, A, B, A, yeah, 1, and little A, B, almost like an outline. So this throng of bearded men, some of them were in sad-colored garments, some of them had gray steeple-crowned hats, and the throng of bearded men was intermixed with women. Some of those women were wearing hoods, and some of those women were bareheaded. That throng of men was assembled. They were assembled in front of a wooden edifice. The door of that edifice was heavily timbered with oak, and it was also studded with iron spikes. So here's an example of a very long sentence, and the key is to figure out what is the meat and potatoes of the sentence. What is the heart of the sentence, the subject and the predicate? In this case, it's a throng was assembled. Let's try another sentence. I'll read it out loud, and then I'll ask you to find the most essential words. In accordance with this rule, it may be safely be assumed that the forefathers of Boston had built the first prison house somewhere in the vicinity of Cornhill, almost as seasonably as they marked out the first burial ground on Isaac Johnson's lot and round about his grave, which subsequently became the nucleus of all the congregated sepulchres in the old churchyard of King's Chapel. All right, hit pause to study the sentence and pick out the 4 words that are essential. All right, we're back. So it may be assumed. Everything else is extra. We can cross out in accordance with the rule. We can cross out everything. Now, I'm not saying that every sentence should be 4 words. Obviously, the details enrich and make this sentence complex and wonderful. So my question is not which words should be removed. My question is which words, if we were going to find the most essential idea, should we leave? And that would be, it may be assumed. Let's try it again with a sentence from Stuart Little by E.B. White. In the loveliest town of all, where the houses were white and high, and the elm trees were green and higher than the houses, where the front yards were wide and pleasant, and the backyards were bushy and worth finding out about, where the streets sloped down to the stream, and the stream flowed quietly under the bridge, where the lawns ended in orchards, and the orchards ended in fields, and the fields ended in pastures, and the pastures climbed the hill and disappeared over the top toward the wonderful wide sky. In this loveliest of all towns, Stuart stopped to get a drink of sarsaparilla. You are now looking for the 2 words that must be kept in order to keep the sentence complete. Hit pause till you find them. And we're back. If you answered Stuart stopped, you are correct. You have a lot of description of the town. In a town where houses, in a town where the front yards, in a town where the street sloped, in a town where the lawns ended, in a town where all these things happen, and the lawns ended in orchards, and orchards ended in fields, and fields ended in pastures, and pastures climbed the hill. You have all this going on, but this sentence is about Stuart stopping, and he's stopping to get a drink of sarsaparilla. Notice that that does not come into play until the last portion of the sentence. Everything else is descriptive prior to that. But the heart of the sentence, the subject is Stuart, and the predicate is stopped. All right, I think we've got time for one more. As he crossed toward the pharmacy at the corner, he involuntarily turned his head because of a burst of light that had ricocheted from his temple, and saw, with that quick smile with which we greet a rainbow or a rose, a blindingly white parallelogram of sky being unloaded from the van, a dresser with mirrors across which, as across a cinema screen, passed a flawlessly clear reflection of boughs sliding and swaying, not arboreally, but with a human vacillation produced by the nature of those who are carrying this sky, these boughs, this gliding facade. All right, hit pause and see if you can find the two words that must be kept. The subject is he, and the predicate is turned. He turned. Those are the two most essential words in the sentence. That is the subject and the predicate. Everything else is wonderfully rich and complex, but it is not technically necessary to maintain the grammatical structure of the sentence. If you took out the word he, you would no longer have a complete sentence. If you took out the word turned, you would no longer have a complete sentence. Every other word or phrase can be removed and the sentence would still stand. Okay, now it's time for you to build a sentence. This week, you're going to write your own long sentences as a way to understand how they are constructed. So your goal is to do this activity 3 times. Make sure that you use the punctuation that we've learned, and especially to transition between clauses and phrases. What I'm going to show you on the next slide are 10 steps, and there'll be some small text. Don't be scared about the small text. I'm going to work you through it. But you're going to write some long sentences. You're going to start off with a sentence that you create of about 3 words. It's just going to have a subject, a predicate, maybe an article, and or the or something like that. And you're going to keep adding to that sentence, add to the end of it, add to the beginning of it, and you're just going to keep tacking on in 10 different steps till you get a complete sentence. So let's take a look at that slide. Like I said, it's a lot of small text, but let's work through it. On this side, you've got the instructions. And on this side, I've given you an example of each. So let's take a look at the very last sentence. This is our finished product, and I'll read it to you out loud. It was in the late fall that in the cold desert, the withered tree bloomed in the golden sunlight, just as it had the day before. As the tired birds chirped and the river flowed, yet nobody understood why. These days are the most important. That is our final sentence. As you backtrack, you can see that I've added a little bit more with each step. So I start off with the tree bloomed, and I wind up with this very, very long sentence at the end. In each subsequent step, 1 through 10, I've added a little bit more, and the underlining implies the portion that I've added. So in step 1, I have the tree bloomed. I added that. In step 2, I've added in the sunlight. In step 3, I've added in the desert, all while retaining the previous portions that I'd written. So your assignment is pretty easy, and I think this is kind of fun. On a random piece of paper or on a random computer document, wherever you want to write this down, do this exercise. Build yourself a sentence. Maintain your punctuation as you go. You will then come up with phrases and clauses that make your sentence long and wonderfully complex. So don't forget to punctuate as you go the way you've been taught. And I'd like you to try this 3 times because your sentences will be rapidly different. You may want to think about a moment you had in your childhood that was worth celebrating or remembering or putting into a long sentence. Something that you would want to paint a picture of with words, something from your childhood, something from your past. Maybe it could even be your recent past, something that happened over Thanksgiving or something like that, that gave you a memory, and you get to turn that memory into a snapshot. And this sentence will capture that snapshot. So if you could do this 3 times, I think you'll enjoy this activity, and it will help you write long sentences. And when you can write long sentences, you can learn to read. That's ready for week number 12. Listen, you've got to read good literature, and you've got to be able to take a piece of lengthy text and be able to read it out loud as fluidly as you heard me read some of those long sentences. So that's it, Al. That's for this week. And if you have any questions, stop by my room, 1523, and see me. And have a good week, Owls.